Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the committee and community members. Some of you know that we have had, again, I want to create a space for history and context, and I won't be long-winded. There are, I kid you not, 70 slides here, but I will go fast. So presenting here in the Community Relations Committee meeting, really this crosses over all committees, and I want all committee members and board members to know and realize that. And this comes as a result of a lot of time and study. So I'm going to begin, and yeah, let me just dive right in, and if you have questions, feel free to slow me down and ask. Come on, please work. Okay, everyone seeing the next slide there? Alignment, misalignment, okay, very good. So taking a cue from our comprehensive plan, and if board members remember, when we got into this, we said that comprehensive plan was going to touch everything, and it has. Many of you who remember about a year ago, getting to 70 plus people got together. We looked at data, we looked at things that were going on that had an immediate impact emotionally, but it had a longer impact in terms of how we were considering programming. But this is one school specific. So I wanted board members and others to know that what we are really looking at here is taking a lot of really good things and trying to put them together in a cohesive and comprehensive manner. But that's not easy, and it's certainly not free. So what did we do, and how did we get here? As a result of hearing a lot of, and I will say, concern about our middle school, going back to the transition of the 5th grade, which someone correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe it was 2013, 2014 school year, where we transitioned 5th grade into the middle school. And since then, there have been continual concerns that have been raised. And this year, I believe, brought on a lot by the pandemic, but other factors as well, we've been taking a very strong look at ourselves. So I took time to meet with stakeholders. We've been listening, we've been learning, we've been planning. So the staff have been a big part of this, but not just the staff. Students, the student data, parents, many of their complaints and concerns that they've listed over the years. This is a compilation of that. But I want to pause and just talk a little bit about the progress that we have made, because I don't think that it's fair to say, oh, the middle school is broken. The middle school is not broken, but we need to improve some things. And we're not afraid to look at the harsh facts and say, what can we do about that? But again, it's about context. So I want to talk a little bit about the progress that we've made so that we understand where we've been and can understand where we're going. Okay, so now I'm going to flip through quickly. Many years ago, probably 6 or 7 now, we added a 5th grade teacher. At one point, we only had 9 homeroom teachers. We had very full classrooms. We moved to 10 teachers. This is year 4 of Where Everyone Belongs, a very large mentoring program where 8th grade students are mentoring 5th grade. This year, I'm proud to announce that our 8th grade students were the first 5th graders to be mentored. So now we have 4 years of this program affecting our school. Created for Greatness program, which actually Created for Greatness started before the Strive initiative started, but David Charles has been a huge champion of the middle school and his mentorship program, as well as his physical presence and programming with our kids. Creative Health Counseling and Supports. We have approved spaces where therapeutic programming can happen. That's not done by our staff. It's done by Creative Health, board approved therapists and counselors in-house, which is, it took, I think, a year to get that approved, and we have it and we use it. Security camera upgrades to the tune of 6 figures. We put Almost no school has 100% coverage, but we have covered a lot of both internal and external space so that we can get to the root of some issues. And many people know this, but it's, I think, worth saying here, we are organized in dyads. And so just to give everyone an understanding of what that means, it means that our students in 5th and 6th grade actually see less teachers than 2nd and 3rd and 4th graders. Definitely 3rd and 4th grade. They'll see up to 3 different teachers for the different things that they learn. But in 5th and 6th grade, we made the conscientious decision to limit time with 2 teachers. So 5th grade student, we're not talking about, art and, other things, related arts, but for the most part, they have exactly 2 teachers and they go back and forth in between those rooms. Our 7th and 8th grade has had teams for many years, which means that it's not 7th grade, the full grade, it's 7 white and 7 blue, 8 white and 8 blue, and those teachers are able to speak with each other. We've added additional experiences like North Bay. Those experiences are every year, but it's culminating into that 1-week field trip, which, yes, it got derailed by the pandemic, but we have every intention of bringing it back and making that part of our experience for the foreseeable future. PBIS, positive behavior programming, which sounds like a bunch of education mumbo jumbo, even to me. So to put this in more specific terms, this is culture building. That's all this really is. It's about calling out what we believe in. It's about rewarding kids when we see the values that we want, like honesty and kindness, and being on time and being prepared for class. So this is culture building, and we have been doing this. ATSI planning. This has a lot to do with instruction. Some of it was, not some of it, all of it. The ATSI, that's not our acronym, that's an acronym from Pennsylvania Department of Education, which was triggered by some of our low instructional scores at the middle school. But what does that really mean? It really means that we have more instructional focus. And if you were to ask most folks at the middle school, what's that ATSI thing? They would say, oh, it means that at the beginning of every class, we talk about our learning intentions. And then we also call out our success criteria. So if you're going to be successful in this, you got to get problems 10 through 25 done in the class. We call that out. And I will tell you that it is something that, having visited, as board members know, and community members might know, I visit schools every single week. And when I go to the middle school pre-planning, I could see that we were fragmented. Post-planning, there's no question that learning intentions, every time I go in the room, I know what's going on. So that's positive. Special education programming. We know that this was an issue years ago. We opened up Edgewood. And we took some of that more specialized, more needy programming, and I say needy, the students who have more needs, and we were able to place them in the Edgewood building in specific classes and give them the supports that they needed and they deserved. And as a result, they were not in the middle school. We added secure vestibules. We added a registration system to make sure that people who are coming to get students at Pottstown Middle School were doing so safely and orderly. This board supported us in making sure that we had security. We also cleaned up the lunchroom. Not that the lunchroom was ever terrible, but there were times when it was not good. And we got more staff in there. We trained them. We talked to our kids. We have really turned around the cafeteria, and that's a positive thing. Much better coverage of positive stories happening at the middle school. More information has been going out to parents in the form of newsletters. Our MTSS process has been a positive thing. We say prepare each student by name for success at every level. But if we never actually name them, it's real hard to get them to success. So we have been more deliberate about data-driven decision-making, and I have more to say on that. later. So again, data analysis and tracking. We have regular meetings where we talk about students and if they're not doing well, how we improve that situation. Social and emotional learning. Real big hit at the high school and the elementary school when we first started that, struggled a little bit at the middle school, but now they're all in, and that's been an improvement. Many people don't know this, but the schedule currently, we have a mentoring period every single morning. That is a really positive way for our students and teachers to build good relationships. And we have an organized e-hall pass system, which we invested in because we recognized that the hallways were an issue. So now we can internally control the number of students and make sure that if someone was in the hall and you know, some might say, well, wait a second, does that mean that, you know, somebody's going to have an accident? No, that's not what it means. But it does mean that we know who was in the hall when, and it creates a higher level of accountability. Teams and collaboration are definitely more prevalent. And here's a little gem that most people don't know. Our virtual teachers in classes have been a huge success. We have approximately 10% of our students in a virtual environment. I would say it's more successful at the 5th and 6th grade level than the 7th and 8th grade level, but it's definitely an aspect of Pottstown Middle School that has been positive. Additional technology and software, and I know that you are all aware of that. And the 7th grade Gear Up grant, it's barely even started, but it's definitely a positive. So challenges, that was a big major section. So thanks for sticking with me. We're moving on quickly. So one of the things that I did with Mr. Hostetler is we just sat down and we said, let's talk about this year. Let's talk about some of the issues that we're really facing. Just give it to me straight. And here are some of the things that we heard. And this, I would say, is something that I've heard for quite some time. Behavior, respect, accountability, consistency on all levels are still a concern at Pottstown Middle School. Parental communication is often lacking. And this is not a matter of, you know, whose fault is it? Did the teacher, you know, call as much as he or she should have? Did the parent call as much as he or she should have? That's not what it is. It's just a matter of we notice that parental communication is lacking. Lots of different reasons. Change phone numbers, work, childcare issues, etc. Hallway transitions. We know that hallway transitions are an issue, and we want to do what we can to fix it. Most noted by 5th grade. I will put that out there. 5th grade team called this out and said, listen, our recess is, it's hampered by the facilities and by the space that they have. Kids don't look forward to recess like we think they ought to. And I talked about that culture building. One of the things we heard was, you know, it's nice to say build a culture, but there's no money behind it. And MTSS coaching. Board members, thank you so much for your support in the MTSS process. It has made quite a difference, and we're just getting started. But one thing that board members aren't aware of, and most, I don't think the community is aware of this either, is that at the middle school, especially where we might, I would argue that we needed it the most, it was stymied. We had MTSS coaches, because of the severe shortages, they were in classrooms doing very minimal MTSS work for months. I mean, we're not talking a couple days of being a substitute. We're talking about months of being a substitute. And that derailed many of our efforts to be more data-driven. Student attendance. Yes, this is an issue across the board, across the county, and probably across the nation, but definitely across the state. But we also recognize that it's exacerbated at the middle school. Student attendance was called out as being an issue. We cannot teach them if they are not there. And this leads to the multi-year challenge of, we can't seem to get our sea legs under us. There's different issues that, just like I called out the wins, we've had some really good wins, but we've had setbacks. We've had assistant principals who have moved through. We've hired many assistant principals since 2013, sometimes multiple in 1 year. And I believe this board has been supportive in turning that around. So thank you for that. But a multi-year challenge of different issues, questioning the overall infrastructure. That's what one teacher said, Stephen, I know that we're being supported and that we have people who care. But every time I call the main office, there's nobody there. They're running around dealing with all the other issues. So we just have, not enough hands. And that leads me to question our infrastructure. So now I want to talk about recommendations. But before I do, I would be remiss, and this is going to be an aside, so I'll ask board members for some lenience here. But I would be remiss if I did not say what I have heard from many community members. And I've definitely heard it from staff as well, but I will say that this has been something that I've heard from community members more than anything. And that has to do with our relationship and community partners with Pottstown Police Department. Board members remember that after the pandemic, we put a pause on the school resource officer program. Of course, there was a lot of angst nationwide after the George Floyd murder. And there was a lot of questioning of whether or not police should be in schools. But I do believe that, again, not for consideration right now, but because I've heard it so much and because I've heard it specifically from the middle school, I felt that I'd be disingenuous if I didn't say, I believe we need to consider for the future looking at that school resource officer program and reactivating it. Now, I will also say at this point to board members and the community, I recognize that there is some concern. And in fact, I attended this year, and in fact, within the last month, I attended different security professional development opportunities, one of which was offered by the ACLU. And they're quite critical of some of the policing programming that has gone on nationwide and call out some of the harm and some of the negative issues that are associated there. But I was really encouraged because when you know what some of the problems are, you can develop a program, especially in a place like this, where we're a small town and people like when police are involved and there's some level of support and accountability. I think that we have an opportunity, certainly that may not be the direction the board decides to go, but I think we have an opportunity to create some programming in the future. So I feel like I've done honor to the feedback that I've gotten there. And again, the school resource officer program is not part of the middle school presentation, but I did want to mention it. Okay, so again, here's the crux of the presentation. Again, going back to the beginning, talking about misalignment. We're doing lots of good things. I think everyone has seen this. We're doing a lot of good things, but how are we aligning it? And there's no such thing as a problem-free school. There's no such thing as a perfect school. If you find a perfect school, don't go there because you will mess it up. Schools are filled with children. They're filled with adults. We are all human. When we interact with one another, sometimes those interactions go sour. But our job is to work through that and educate through that. However, it's still clear that it's clear to me anyway, that we can do a better job aligning our efforts to have a better outcome for our students and our community. So here's my recommendation. Number one, district-sponsored 5th and 6th grade intramurals all 3 seasons. So starting in September, we will offer, if possible, every single day, intramurals activities in our gym, in our fields, wherever we can to get kids activated, not as a result of them, paying to play. but district sponsored. So any child who wants to, and you know, is not a, you know, major behavior problem of sorts. We want them in. We want them to participate, and we want to pay coaches and others to provide those opportunities to create great relationships with kids. And this is something that we've heard over and over again. In fact, you'll see it in a little bit when we go over the survey results. So that's number one, and that's a big one. Number two, fix the recess area. This is something that will take time, and it is a facilities issue. But this is what it looks like right now. Now, if you're in 5th grade and you're a part of the middle school and you see all those routes and you see the area there, it's okay. It's not terrible, but I think we can do better. And I think that if we do better, our kids will do better. Number 3, keep all of our virtual teacher options, expanding it if needed or condensing it if needed. But based on our number of students, making sure that that virtual option does not go away. So for those students who want it and are doing okay, you know, we don't want them to fail or not show up. That's a different circumstance. But, you know, for those students who are doing okay, to have the option to continue virtually at the middle school. This was a crowd pleaser with staff, and I know that it's going to be hard to do. But if possible, hire 1 substitute per grade. Things go wrong when we have to trade kids, when someone who's never met a student before, they're sub number 6 or 7 of the day, and they're coming in with students who are, you know, already irritated that their regular teacher is out. So wouldn't it be great if we had 4 people who, maybe not every day, but as consistently as possible, could come in and lend support? That's what I think would really help next year. This is internal and it doesn't really require any money. It's just a matter of making sure that we start off the year fully staffed in special education. That did not happen at any level last year. We didn't have our administration fully staffed. We didn't have our teachers fully staffed. We didn't have our paraprofessionals fully staffed, and it hurt. And then consider transfers for elite match to the needs of the school district. Add behavior specialists to support Pottstown Middle School and regular ed staff. A lot of times students are set off or not having success for very simple reasons, but we don't always see it. Sometimes we expect a lot of transitions out of students and not realize that that's setting them off. Having someone, even if it's a contracted position, to come in and be a resource for an assistant principal, for a teacher, to be able to come in and say, hey, you know, this student, Xavier, has you know, not been succeeding every day after lunch. I don't know what to do. A behavior specialist can help with that. And the reason that that's part of the process is because we had the exact same issue going on at Rupert. We added a behavior specialist and we watched many of our issues, not all, but many of our issues get cleared up. Increase parent and student activity options like dances. And you're gonna see this in the survey, which I imagine board members will have questions on, but it seems to us very clear that having more activities and positive things for kids and families to get involved in is a critical part of the success of the middle school. Market and advertise. And again, you'll see this in the survey. It's clear that we need to do a better job, even if it means putting things in print and sending it home. Parents are saying, we want to know what's going on. We want to see what the opportunities are. And finally, well, not really finally, but organize each activity by grade level. And this is a big one. In fact, I would say if you're going to walk away with anything, you know, you heard several different pieces of the pie. This is the pizza. This is the most important thing I'm about to say tonight. Move to a house model by grade level. Think school within a school. Think 4 schools within one roof. 5th grade is a house. Sixth grade is a house. No, we're not talking Harry Potter style, but we are talking well, actually, let me stop blabbering and show you what I mean. So a house model would mean that we would assign a home and school visitor and a social worker to the middle school each week to check in with each of those grades and say, fifth grade, what's going on? Who's not showing up? Sixth grade, show us where your issues are. Maybe there's something we can do. Seventh grade, show us who's struggling. How is so-and-so doing from last week? Eighth grade, how is it going? Integrate all the upgrades and activities by grade, and then assign a house principal to work with each grade level and that staff. So that's when I said the most important thing I'm going to say is house model. The house model doesn't work unless there's someone to pull it all together, and that would be the house principal that would work with each grade level. We made an investment to have school counselors. I said it right. I said it wrong in my head first, but I said school counselors at each grade level. Those school counselors often need the support of administrators. And as I gave the example of the one teacher who clearly said, I know everybody's trying to do right, but I call and nobody's there. Well, now what we're doing is we're getting much closer to the ratio of what we do in middle school, what we do in elementary school. So think in terms of numbers, because I know that I have several board members who are high C's. They like to have the detail and the information. So an average elementary principal is dealing with about 315 to 330 students. That's about, in fact, my general average is 330, and you get the demographics. You can look it up and see the numbers for yourself. 330 students and one principal. If we move to a house model, the average is about 250, actually the lowest number, because Brian told me this, was 270. There are 979 students in the middle school last time I checked. So around 252 or so of those students are in each grade level. So we really are matching that elementary level by moving to a house model. The school counselor, the house principal, and other relevant staff will loop from grade to grade. So we don't lose the relationship that is built over the year, we capitalize on it. So if Mr. Smith, forgive the names, but if Mr. Smith is the house principal and he's in for fifth grade, then at the end of the year, he moves on to sixth grade. The teachers don't move, but the assistant principal and the school counselor does move. What this means, because I want to call it out, if we move to a house model, we're hiring 2 more assistant principals. We're hiring at least a home and school visitor and probably a social worker to fill in the gap for the things that can't be done by assistant principal and school counselor. And I will tell you, one of the people who gave us feedback was one of those brand new counselors who we chose, and you know, she said, I am so happy to be here and I'm helping kids, but I will tell you, I was immediately hit with kids who don't, I can't help them. They need case management. They need services outside that I can't easily link to. So that's where some of this comes from in terms of making sure that we fill in the gap. We are considering a reduction. As of right now, the board approved 3 MTSS coaches, but we believe in this model, we only need 2. And they will be very similar to the elementary model. We'll have one person who looks at the ELA, or that reading data, and helps every single grade level. And then one person with math data that helps every single grade level. We cannot take our foot off the gas of the instruction model, because if instruction isn't a major part of what we do at the middle school, then even if we succeed, we fail. Greatly increase parent communication, student accountability, and support, including doing surveys with 5th grade parents only, 6th grade parents only, 7th grade parents only, and 8th grade parents only. Focused student scheduling, building-wide bell schedule, and interventions or enrichment based on math and ELA. So I'm just going to show you, staff are more interested in this. I think parents probably not as much, but I think it's important to see the bell schedule for next year, and then what that kind of looks like from a teacher perspective. So this would be the 5th and 6th grade teacher schedule, and they got a chance to look at this. And many of these are based on recommendations from our staff. So we're able to give, you'll notice, doubling up of reading and math. So that's the dyad working, but it's also a matter of making sure that intervention is part of what we do. And our data says that we need this and more. And this would be 7th grade. I also think it's important to make sure that we're going to, from a staff perspective, greatly increase our parent communication. But I think it would be a mistake for us to believe that staff are the only way to get to parents. So we've kind of talked a little bit about this idea of a parent advocate or a parent liaison. We can, call it different things. At this point, I'm thinking that part-time, I'd like to pilot the model, but based on some of our previous work, we're believing, and I'm gonna put her name out there because I don't think that she would mind. Mercedes Jackson is a part of the staff at the middle school. Some people may know that. She's also a parent. And she put it very bluntly. Sometimes a parent has to talk to a parent. And it was a fair point. And we see that in the data, that sometimes a parent has to talk to a parent. So why don't we put that in this model to say, if we're not having success, if the home and school visitor is knocking at the door and the social worker can't get any return phone calls, maybe a parent has to talk to a parent. Doesn't mean that it's going to work forever, but I think that it's worth a try. So I'm also going to recognize that, throughout the summer, and with full board recognition, we might have to do a little bit of reconstruction of offices, because what we're talking about here, if we move to a house model, Brian and I walked around the building. Some of the places where there is space makes no sense if you're moving to a house model. You might as well not have an assistant principal who's there to support if he's always on the corner of the stage on the 3rd floor and nowhere near the students, but that's the only place that he can meet. So we're going to have to think about that. And if you give us the green light, then we're going to be working with John, and we do have some ideas, but until we get the green light, we're just going to make do, but construction might be needed. So I'm going to end, this is the last part, and then I'll pause and take any questions. I'm going to end with this. So we spent well over a year, but at least a year, looking at the Edgewood option to improve the middle school. And it was basically, hey, let's put 5th grade. We know we got a lot of kids in there. Let's put 5th grade there. As I reflected on that, it seemed to me that everybody was nervous that, hey, you're going to try this. It's going to cost millions of dollars, and it might not even work. And that really resonated with me. And this time going through, I thought, and thanks to some federal dollars, we have some opportunity to do it differently. So now I'm not asking the board for a forever program. I'm asking the board to do this for 2 years. 2 years, and then we start looking at things. I think I put it in here. If we don't see better results, we will not continue to change course or course correct, depending on our assessments. Do I hope that some of that level up money allows us to continue? Yes, I do. Do I hope that our conservative approach is going to be blown out of the water and we're going to get more money than we thought? Yes, I do. But I also understand that the board has a responsibility to be fiscally conservative, because it is the taxpayers that pay for this. So the plan is to use ESSER dollars. And the plan further is, if you give me a yes, it's a yes for 2 years. It's not a yes forever. and I'm asking for the board for permission and support to move forward for next year. We will clearly identify these positions for transparency. So, and if the board wishes to say, as a consent item or a non-consent item, if you want to put on here that you approve the house model, that's fine. But it doesn't really mean anything until you begin to actually hire the people. So what I would do is I would be saying, and I don't know what the wording will be. I'll probably have to consult with Mr. Kalis and Mrs. Jampo, but something to the effect of house model, PMS, assistant principal. And that way you know exactly what you're approving and why you're approving it. So that is what I am asking the board for today. And I thank you for your patience. I know I took some time, but I think that it was important to be clear.